Okay, so thanks again for everyone who is on with us this evening. I appreciate you taking the time out of your chaotic day. I know mine is chaotic all the time. So, Mamas in Business, we are local networking groups of entrepreneurs serving the North Idaho community, whether it's products or services. And we actually have new memberships that I just launched this week. So be sure to check that out, mamasinbusiness.org. I'll put it in the chat box because I know not everyone who is watching this is a Mamas in Business member. But check that out. And I even updated all the events we have coming up on our website. So again, just go to our website to learn more. And then I do want to give a shout out to my other business with my hubby, Craft Tree Care. We are a tree service removal well, not just removal, but tree service company for North Idaho. And we do tree removal, tree trimming, and stump grinding. But we are the primary sponsor for Mama's Business. And you probably see my youngest, Athena. She just woke up, so of course she's got to be a little fussy right now. But with that being said, I am so excited to hear, Brittany, you speak on how to make your business legit. This is such a huge thing for small business owners and how we can really apply this to our operations to get us to that next scale, to that next level. So I'll hand it off to you. Again, if you have any questions, put in the chat box and go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Nikki. And I want to say it says online businesses in this front slide, but really what I'm talking about here works for offline businesses as well. So don't have no fear. 99% of the stuff that I talk about will really be the same either way. But thanks so much for having me. It's been such a treat to try to get better about connecting with local people. Because yeah, I do live in Coeur d'Alene. I live in the Inland Northwest as well. And even though a lot of the people that I serve online, it's always great. And there's something great about gathering with women in person. And so I'm really grateful for Nikki putting together, for putting in the work that comes with that, because I know how much work that goes into it. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Brittany Ratelle. I am a small business attorney. I do purely transactional law, and this is where you can find me in all the places. I'm really active on Instagram because I want to hang out where my small businesses and creatives are, and they're on Instagram. So that I'm like, Ariel, I want to be where the people are, and my people are on there. And then I also have a podcast. It's on hiatus right now, but there's still a lot of back episodes, and we will be starting up the new season this summer. And then I also have a YouTube channel and a template shop, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So, but let's get into it. So, okay, and like any good attorney, I have to start out with a disclaimer. By law, I have to make it very clear I am an attorney. I'm not your attorney. This is not official legal advice, anything that I share about here, or really any of my digital resources, guides, checklists, stuff that I have, any of my content. It's not specific to your business, so it can't be legal advice, and it doesn't form that attorney-client relationship. That involves you signing an engagement letter and then paying me money. That's how that works when I'm your attorney, and that's not what we have going on today. And even though I do a lot of IP law, I don't want you to be nervous that I am totally okay with you screenshotting, with you recording, with you screen grabbing anything from today. You're welcome to share it on social media. A big part of my why, my Simon Sinek why, is I want to make it easier for women to do business and to establish boundaries. And so if you can help me in that mission by sharing information, if it was helpful to you, it might be probably helpful to someone else. And so feel free, if there's anything that spoke to you or you're like, oh my gosh, I did not know this, please feel free to share. Tag me if you can remember, and I'm not going to come after you, okay? It's always good to check, but I'm letting you know right now that kind of sharing is caring. So this is my beautiful family that I love so much. My husband, my hunky husband, his hair is even longer now, if you can imagine it. That was like, if you don't trust me for nothing else for my negotiation skills, know that it took me 15 years to get my husband to grow his hair out, and like worth it, right? These are just a few of the clients I've had the privilege of supporting and working with. But I'm a nerdy girl at heart. I love Lord of the Rings. I just heard that they're going to be back in theaters this summer. So like I am going in my sweats with my blanket. I will be parking my keister in a theater for 12 hours. Like not even a question. Also a big romantasy reader. So if you have Rex and want to connect online on that, please feel free. So okay, let's start with my little mantra. I really would like you to say this out loud if you can, unless like you're in a public spot, you know, with AirPods in, and it's going to be really weird. I will not be overwhelmed by this. I simply know more than I did before. Okay. This is really helpful because believe it or not, addressing the legal side or the money side, or sometimes these kind of less fun side of our businesses can bring up a lot of feelings of shame, of overwhelm, of like, oh gosh, I should have known this and I'm so dumb and you're going to be so mad at me, Britt, and whatever. And none of those are really productive emotions, right? We can only control now what we can do moving forward, which is fine. That's the reality that we live in. And so feeling shame or imposter syndrome or anything else layered on top of that is not serving us. So let's, when we know better, we do better. Okay. Let's Maya Angelou this all the live long day and just move forward. Okay. Because let's recognize that you are a business owner. And so that means that you have to be the one to own your business. You have to be the one to set boundaries and teach others how to treat you and your business. And this is the same whether you are a service provider, you sell a physical product, you're in e-commerce or retail, whether you're a content creator or a media person or influencer, right? Or a maker, an artisan. It doesn't really matter the business model type. At the end of the day, it's your business and you want to own it. And that does mean owning the highs and lows and doing all that personal work so that you can grow and be capable the way that you want to be. So if you'd like to have a guide that goes along with this, you can get this freebie of mine, which is you can get it at getlegitwithbritt.com. And it is my Legally Legit checklist. It's a free download. It's what I recommend, right? It's that lead magnet I send everyone to because it's so dang helpful. And it's meant to be a companion piece that will kind of help you step by step go through this framework that we're going to be talking about today. And that is my Legally Legit framework. There's a couple of us online who are kind of like cool modern attorneys who talk about getting legally legit. You can see that I'm very into my branding above. But I want to take it one step further. And I use this framework to help people kind of envision and tackle the steps that they need to get their business set up and set for success moving forward. And so today we're going to talk about laying a foundation. And this means looking at, just like it sounds like, the bedrock of our business. What's going on bottom and what do we need to do to make sure to protect our entity and corporate and structure so we can move forward. We're going to talk about evaluating our website. If you don't have a website, you're the rare exception, right? But most people do. And once you have a website online, there are certain things that you need to do to make sure it's protected and that it's compliant, because you're going to have information. You might have people's information. They might actually be transacting business online. But even if they're not, you're probably collecting their information. And so there's some things you need to be aware of there. We're going to talk about getting stuff in writing, okay? That means contracts. And contracts, they get a bad rap because they're boring and long. But they can be your buddies. And they can be your buddies in a weird way, in that a contract can be the bad guy when you don't want to have to be the bad guy. And that's a really great way to use a contract to protect yourself. We're going to talk about IP, identifying and protecting your intellectual property that you might not even realize you have in your business. And certainly recognizing that protects you and opens up doors for maybe other opportunities like licensing and franchising, whatnot, which protecting your IP is step one if that's a vision that you have someday. And then troubleshooting, like, what are the realities of, like, this is all great, Britt, but like, I'm in the trenches. What do I need to focus on and what do I need to bless and release? We're going to talk about that. Okay. So laying your foundation. Okay. Say my name, say my name. What is it about a name that is so important that we have to be careful about? So let's talk there. Okay, I promised 90s references and I'm going to deliver. Okay, so when you start a business, you got to pick a name for the business. And some people choose their name, which is totally fine. Some people choose a brand or an idea, or, remember the whole era that we had that was like people picked their kids' names and like a fun noun, right? We had all those like, Pumpernickel and Lily brands that came out, like literally just put two nouns together. There was a whole era of that, right, in the business. That all of those options could be great. But the really important thing about picking a name, and really the only way that you screw this up, is you pick a name that's not available and that belongs to somebody else. And so I want to talk about the two really important steps, actually three steps to do about getting your name cleared to starting a business. And I put this first because really this needs to come first in your business. And that's, you do a really deep Google search. Okay. I'm talking way past the first page. Okay. And I want you to check for alternate spellings. I want you to check for pluralities and related goods or services. Now, if you're a local business, like a tree care company, then I am not as concerned about someone who might not be in your area. However, if someone else is a national brand, then I would be concerned, right? Because they are still probably going to find it really problematic if you have the same name as they do, because a consumer might be confused and think that you're associated or related, right? And in fact, by law, they're supposed to protect their own trademark rights or they can lose them. It's kind of a use them or lose them thing. And so you could get hit with that cease and desist. That's really not fun. So make sure you do a really good Google search. And again, if you're providing the services, like if you're a beauty salon, then you also should be looking at who sells those beauty products. Even though one's a service, one's a product, you could see how they're related. And in the minds of a consumer, it could be too close. Next step, after that all looks good, I want you to go to the trademark search database. So, and actually the name of it just changed. It's not test, it's just TS now, but whatever. It just got updated in November after 20 years of being the same thing. And this is open to the public, and I do like this new database more, and that I think it's a little less overwhelming. But I still put this asterisk on attorney recommended, is because the trademark database is a Boolean search operated database. It's like those, scary, reports say you had to do like library assignments where you had to put the and not here and like build out those search strings. That's what kind of database it is. So it's not like Google. It's not intuitive. It's not going to try to figure out what you're asking for. It will give you exactly the results that you ask it. And so, for example, if you go to the trademark search system and you put in Starbucks, with like trying to make Starbucks cool and put a Z on the end, it will come out with 0 search results. You can see how that's problematic, right? If you are going to start a coffee company, please do not name it Starbucks, okay? And put some Riz at the end. It's not going to be different enough. You're going to get hit with a cease and desist faster than you can see Sleepless in Seattle. So because of that, it has a high false clearance, meaning people can go to it, feel like they did their search, and feel way more confident in the results than they really should be. And so that's tough. And I have some resources about how to search and whatnot. I'm actually developing some more because I understand this is such a problem for, for the public, right? In order to how to use this system. But because it's a new one, I have to update all my search resources, right? All my other ones taught you how to do it on the old system, and now those are obsolete. So fun. But just know, if this is a name that you absolutely love, if you're planning on investing a lot of money in branding or a new website or signage, or you want a franchise or license, if you have any of those other big dreams someday, please work with a trademark attorney, me or someone else, and get a real search done sooner rather than later, so you know if it's available or not. Okay, and then step 3, keep monitoring. This is not a set it and forget it type of thing. You need to check every quarter. I would go through the same process and do it again, put it in your business calendar so you don't forget. And then get those handles and domain names stat as soon as they're available. Even if you're not posting there, at least you can sit on them and make it so someone else doesn't have them. There is a process to get some of those once you have your trademark, but it's not easy, and getting your trademark takes a while. So this is nice to do. And then save that money for that full trademark where you can actually register. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, about what is an actual trademark. Okay, let's talk about foundation structure. We don't want no scrub, so it's time to give some TLC with an LLC. Okay, what is an LLC and why do you need one? An LLC is like the panic room, like the boiler room on the Titanic, okay? It was designed so that an iceberg could come, okay? A litigation, a judgment, or a debt could come along. You weren't expecting it, but sometimes bad stuff happens. It could scrape open, water starts flooding that room. But you know what they did? The engine room doors come down, it locks in, and yes, that room gets flooded, and that sucks, but the rest of the ship is okay. Now, in the case of the Titanic, we know that didn't actually work out because too many rooms flooded. But for the sake of our analogy, you can see why an LLC is like that room. Okay, it keeps your business money separate from your personal money. It puts an asset protection boundary or firewall or water wall in between that. And so worst comes to worst, it's a business problem. It's a business money problem. It's not a you problem. So LLCs isolate your risk. They are flexible. A limited liability company can be set up with just 1 member. That's fine, up until 99 members. They're low cost. They're usually like $100 or $200 to set up. In Idaho, they're $100, which is great. They're easy to maintain. It's pretty hard to screw up an LLC. They usually just have to renew them every year. In Idaho, actually, it's great. We don't have any renewal fee for LLCs. A lot of states, they charge you. In Idaho, they don't. They just want you to confirm, hey, this is still your information. And you say, yep, and check the box, and you're good to go. And they have what I call a good ripple effect. And what do I mean by this? I mean that when you set up your LLC, you start to do some things differently because of this. You usually set up your business bank account, you get your EIN, you kind of show up with a different swagger and energy to your business, and it makes a material difference. I've seen it too often in the wild as I'm helping business owners for me to think that it was, oh, it's just coincidence. There's nothing behind this. It really does make a big difference. And so even though I understand not everyone has a high risk of being sued or judgment or debt, it can make such a big difference, and it will never be easier to set up an LLC. It will only be harder the longer you wait. That I really recommend putting it earlier in your business journey and on your list of things to do. So a couple notes about LLCs, a lot of myths that I see out there that I want to bust. A sole proprietorship or a sole prop is not an LLC. So if you do nothing, right? If you just start selling something, anything, goods or services, you are a sole proprietorship. You don't have to do anything to be a sole prop. It is what you are. It is what the IRS says you are, because they're like, hey, you made money, you're a sole prop. Tell us how much money you made. Okay. It's like the Times New Roman font. It's just default. And a sole prop isn't illegal per se, right? You're not in trouble with anyone unless it's like a licensed business and you're supposed to go get a license, right? That's a different thing. But there's no asset protection. Everything is mixed together. Your business and your personal money all together, all simpatico, no difference, no bubble, no fence, no boiler room. Okay. And that a lot of people don't understand that. So also note that, an S Corp is, a lot of people I say, well, I don't know whether I'm supposed to be an S Corp or an LLC. And I'm like, yes. And I'm flippant about that, right? I'm kind of a snot about that, because an S Corp is a tax status. It's not a type of company, okay? You can choose from being an LLC or a C Corp, right? An S Corp is a tax election. And to do that, you have to be an LLC first. So yes, if you start making enough money in your business that you are going to put yourself on payroll, you will see some tax savings. Choosing to do that and to raise your hand to the IRS and say, hey, tax me differently so I can save some money, that is called becoming an S Corp. And it means you just file that form. You or your accountant or your lawyer file that form, okay? But remember, your LLC can go on forever. There's no limit to this, even though there is a limit to and there also is no limit to how long people are going to talk about that stupid door, right? And whether you can fit or not. So, okay. So let's talk about LLC steps. So if you've decided, if I've converted you and you're like, okay, Brett, I'm here for it. How do I actually set up an LLC? Great question. Okay. So let's talk about that. So we're going to go and you're going to set up your contact info. Okay. And this is going to be for people who work from home like me. This is my home office. I recommend doing a virtual mailbox and commercial registered agent services. So these are both separate services. You do need to pay for them. Virtual mailboxes run you about $10 a month. Commercial registered agent services are like $60 a year. So both pretty cost effective. And you set these up because you will need this information to set up your LLC, and you want it done beforehand. But these allow you to not have to list your home address on your LLC docs. And LLC documents are public filings, and so anyone can look them up. You would be shocked at the type of clients I have, who some of them are very public. Some of them are like, YouTube celebrities, and I can find out their home address because they put it on their business documents before talking to me. Okay. So, don't do that, right? If you don't want people showing up to your house because they're mad at you, then don't put your home address on your business documents. You don't have to do it, okay? It's not a requirement. So do this first, build yourself a little buffer and a little privacy, especially as a woman-owned business, okay? Then Google your state plus LLC. Like for us here in Idaho, we would say Idaho LLC. Look for the .gov site. There's going to be a lot of other marketing companies that have paid a lot of money, way more than I could ever match, those form filers, right? The Zendesk and the InkFile and LegalZoom and Taylor Brands and Collective, they're all trying to get your business because they want you to file with them. I'll go over that in a second, why I don't think those are worth your money, but those are not the actual website. Okay, it's not the boring government website. When you've landed on a boring looking government website, okay, that has like a state seal with like an eagle in the corner, you're in the right place. If you go to something else that's like slick and has a cool user experience, that's not a government website. That is something different. So that's how you know the difference. Use your business name or a DBA. So a DBA is like a doing business as, and this is what you would set up if there is a difference between what you want your legal name to be and the name you want the public to have. So if that is different, then you can file a DBA or a doing business as. It acts as like a rainbow bridge in between. Then I want you to get your EIN for the IRS website. That's a lot of acronyms, I know, but this is free. Don't pay for this, okay? It should take you about 5 minutes. That information should match exactly what you just filled out in your LLC. Don't put any commas on the IRS website, okay? It hates commas. The IRS coding language can't abide commas. Don't even get me started on the misguided, future proofing that they did anyway. So, but if you get a rejection, check your commas. That might be why. And then pay your fee and then renew yearly. Put this on your calendar to say, hey, it's my business birthday. In 11 months from now, I'm going to check on that. I'm going to renew and set up and then celebrate, right? Because it is. We don't give enough credit to ourselves and how far we've come in our business. Sometimes it could be a lonely journey being an entrepreneur. So celebrate your business birthday, okay? Go treat yourself to a treat or something. Okay, and then I want you to set up your business bank account. So you're going to take all of these documents with you to the bank. You can take your EIN and your LLC docs. Okay, you could set up online. There are a lot of banks who do online, and this could be a credit union too, which can be a great option. But you're going to set up that business bank account because you're going to keep this money separate. Okay, all business money is going to go into that account. All business expenses are going to be paid from that account or accounts. Okay, you're going to hook up your business credit card to that account. You are not going to mix your money. Okay, you're not going to commingle your assets unless you're on the dance floor. All right. Okay. And then flow that money the right way. Make sure that you are making a profit, that you're paying yourself. Okay. Make sure you're saving money for taxes. Taxes shouldn't be a surprise to you. You're making money, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. Okay. Read the book Profit First and do what it tells you to do. You don't have to set up the separate bank accounts, right? I know some people think that's a bookkeeping nightmare, but you should plan on and have buckets, right? In your mind or in a spreadsheet you're tracking somewhere so that you can pay your quarterly taxes and then your yearly bill and it's not a surprise to you. So, okay. Like I said, what about online formation services, right? AKA legal doom. Look, I don't like to throw shade at people, maybe just a little bit. Maybe I'm okay throwing a little bit of shade if I'm being honest, right? But here's the thing about those. Yes, if you do it, they are done, and done is fun. And I don't throw shade on anyone who knows themselves and is like, Britt, I will never do my LLC on my own. I want to use one of these companies. That's okay. That's totally okay. But they can be hard to cancel. Okay. They will suck you and try to suck you into a subscription like term and, membership. They will upsell you. They will make you try to say like, oh, you want these services with us. And at every point they will charge you more than you could out in the marketplace to get your EIN, to be a registered agent, to do all those things. They're going to want you to do their stupid binder or their rubber stamp set. You don't need any of that crap. And they're expensive to make changes, right? They're like a black box. You don't know how to update your address. You don't know how to go in and add someone or take your brother-in-law off, right? Because he's not in the business anymore. So I like you having the power to be able to do that stuff. So,
Hey, Brittany, really quick. We have a question from Leah, and you tell me if you want to answer it now or later. So
yeah.
Lee's saying Secretary of State is saying starting this year, companies need to report information about their beneficial owners, and we need to go to a link and possibly file. Any further details about this?
Yeah, totally. So that is a new filing requirement from FinCEN that came out this year. However, there is a legal challenge to it. So it doesn't mean that you don't still it's a good idea to do it, but where you go is fincen.gov. So FINCEN.gov. Again, look for the actual government website. Don't look for anyone else who's trying to shill you and sell you stuff. And then it's called the BOIR, the Beneficial Owner Information Report. And you just fill out your information. And you're correct in that if you form an LLC this year, you have 90 days from the date you form that LLC to fill out this information. If you already have an LLC, like if you went into this year and already had one from any other previous time period, then you have until the end of this year to fill out this form. And then next year, you'll have a 30-day window. So if you file any new companies, you get 30 days to do this. And then there's some penalties that start accruing. So this is all part of a Financial Transparency Act. It's part of the CTA, the Corporate Transparency Act that Biden passed. It's meant to stop money laundering because LLCs, because they're kind of a special, unique American creation, they actually make it really easy for people to set up shell companies and to do bad things with their money, like money laundering and illegal activities and drug money laundering, all kinds of stuff we don't want to happen. So, but these are private, so it's okay on the BOI for you to put in your actual address because it's not like a database where people can look up like they can on the LLC. So I've been telling my clients how to do this. I have a guide, a step-by-step, like I show you the screen and exactly what you're supposed to do. It's on my Instagram. So if you go back, earlier in the year. I did it in January, right when it got posted, the new rule. I have a guide on you that's totally for free, just to help you, to walk you through the process. So just know enforcement is probably going to take a while, especially while they have this litigation, but you know, you're not losing anything. So you know, if it's no, you know, November, December, and you haven't done this yet, go ahead and do it. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. So let's see. Oh, and then someone else, Nikki was saying how they separate their accounts. And that's a great thing, is to separate out. So here's some other big picture on like what you should be doing about the foundation of your business. Try not to have mismatched payment details. This is one that it increases your risk of chargebacks, is because what someone sees on their statement, they don't recognize it because it's not the name of you or your company or anything that they signed up for, right? And so don't use weird old LLCs or other ones that aren't connected to anything related to your business, because this increases your risk of chargebacks, which are a huge pain, okay? And they're usually in the buyers, there's a default against the buyer, right, for that. And they cost time and money to fight, so don't do that. Also, it just looks unprofessional, right? Set up to get your payment processing, straighten it out and get it all to match, okay? It's not that hard to get it set up on PayPal and Stripe and whatnot. Unbranded email address. By this, I mean like Brittany Ratelle at gmail.com, okay? Not only is your deliverability of your commercial emails go down if you don't have your branded domain, which that's not great. It also looks like it could be spam. Like, I'm immediately more suspicious if I see someone at Gmail, because I don't have the protection of knowing it's from someone's domain name at their business. So sign up for G Suite. It's really cheap. And then those emails will be connected from your website, and it increases your professionalism and makes you look like you're a real business owner with a real domain. It all checks out. And that, especially don't use any like, you know, Boss Babe 515, like, you know, any of those old email addresses. Just leave them be. Let that be like your college self, onward and upward. Okay. We already talked about don't use your home address as your business address for all types of reasons, but professionalism and security. And these are a personal pet peeve, saying I'm just okay. I'm trying to get rid of the just phrase for pretty much all women entrepreneurs, because usually nothing good follows it. I'm just a little business. I'm just a photographer. I'm just doing this. I just run an Etsy shop. You're not just you just are the thing. So quit putting qualifiers on yourself, diminutives. Let's knock it off for ourselves. Let's not let our friends say it and get away with it. Let's just not, okay? And do better. And then not have any contracts or process, which we'll get into. So do you need a business license? I get this question a lot. They're typically issued by your city or county for businesses, and they usually care about if you have a physical presence. So like if you own a tree removal company, for example, you should get a license, right? Because you have an actual service, you're going onto people's property. There is a physical footprint in your community, right? If you have a retail storefront, if you have a warehouse or a location that customers or clients come in, maybe it's attached to your house, you should also probably get a license. If you are running a food blog from your home, and no one, like literally no one knows that you're running a business, it's all on your computer, you may not need a license. So call your city or your county, if you're on county property, to find out for sure. But just know that for a lot of completely virtual based businesses, they don't care, because they're like, no sewer, no parking, no noise, no emissions, no odors, like whatever, go, bless and release, whatever you want to do, okay? What about an operating agreement? I get this question a lot too. Operating agreements are a really good idea, and they're required in these states. It's not required in our state, but in some other states that you have to have it. Sometimes banks require them too. But if you have a partner in your business, they're a must. You absolutely must have an operating agreement. They're also sometimes called buy-sell agreements or exit agreements or partnership agreements. It's the same thing. We're talking about the ownership and the split of equity and decision-making rights in your company. Also sometimes called a business prenup, right? Because you're getting business married. That's what you do when you set up a business with somebody. And so when we're getting business married, we want prenup. We want prenup, right? Just like crazy Kanye says. I sell one of these in my shop. I also have it also comes with like a questionnaire and a podcast episode that I talk you through kind of business like vision founding and kind of almost like a business premarital counseling session. Someday I'll turn this into like a full-on little workshop product. But you get all that extra stuff for free now when you get that agreement. And I think they're still a good idea, even if you're solo, even if you're a married couple, right? Because it will just force you to go through some steps and talk about things that seem slightly awkward, but are really important, especially in the long run. So, and it's just another like, brick in your wall of solidifying that you have separate liability and asset protection. And so this agreement could be called on as evidence if someone tried to pierce the corporate veil, if something happened to your company and they were coming after you and trying to show you're not a real company, you didn't formulate it right, you didn't do all your things. You could be like, here's my operating agreement, read it and weep. Okay. So that could be really helpful. So, okay. I know that's a big section. That's the biggest one, but let's talk about next, evaluating our website. Okay. Because we don't want to be going streaking on the internet, all right, and going around with a naked footer. So let's talk about that. Okay. So this is what every website needs. Okay. Every website needs this stuff at the bottom. They need a privacy policy. They need website terms. They need disclosures or disclaimers. You need to kind of do an IP audit and a copyright statement. Okay. So let's talk about each of these. So this is what they look like in the wild. So I like to have them separate in your footer of your website like this. So I like to have privacy and then terms. Sometimes they're called terms of use, T&C, terms and conditions, terms of service, whatever. There's no like standardized. So I just go terms. It's a mini contract, except it's not even that mini, between anyone who comes on your website and you. And it clarifies who owns what, that you own your intellectual property on your website. They're not allowed to do anything weird or bad, or, they can't upload anything to your website, that you have the rights to any of the stuff on it. And if you're selling anything from your website, that's where you would put additional information here, like your return policy, your shipping policy, any of your e-commerce and other compliance things related to the sale of goods or services from your site. And then you want your copyright statement right here. You want the year published. And so sometimes you'll see these and people will be like, update your website. You don't technically have to update it with the year. And so sometimes you'll see people will be like, well, my website went live in 2021 and now it's 2024. So I'll say copyright 2021-2024. That's appropriate. Okay. But if you mess this up, it also is not like it takes away your copyright. This is just for notice. This has not been required under the copyright law since 1978. The reason we put this on things is so that people can't be idiots and be like, I had no idea that this belonged to you. Here's your sign. Okay. Here's your copyright. And so it takes away that defense of someone saying they didn't know any better. And then it should be in context to your copyright and who owns the copyright. It should be your name if you haven't listened to me and you haven't set up your LLC, or your LLC, all rights reserved. That is the magic language, the magic words we want that says any of the cool stuff on my website, that belongs to me. You got to check with Mama Bear before you go out and can do anything with it. Okay.
Okay, we have a question, Brittany.
Okay.
So Andrea is asking, is this where you would put information about products being for personal use? Okay.
Yeah, so that's exactly is what I would do it in terms, under your terms. Note that there are people who say stuff about like what you can do with information that isn't all together like this happens a lot for digital products, or I see this a lot in like patterns, right? This happens a lot in the craft community. People will be like, hey, I'm selling a pattern. You can use this for personal use. You can't use this to make things you're going to sell. You actually can't enforce that. That's actually because it's a thing called the first sale doctrine. So once someone buys a thing from you, they can use that however they want. You can restrict that they're just getting a license to use it, that they can't actually go and resell the pattern, if that makes sense. So you can distinguish between, look, I'm selling you the pattern, you can't go resell that, but you cannot restrict in terms of what people do with that, if that makes sense, right? Like they could make something out of it. They can teach it, right, as long as they're not using your actual materials. And so there's some nuance there in terms of intellectual property. It also depends a lot on what you're selling, but that's just an aside, because I see a lot of people get upset of like, so-and-so did that. And I'm like, they're allowed to. That's not to say you can put stuff there, even if it's not legally correct. I just don't really like making threats that you can't enforce. That's typically not how I like to lawyer. I like to, I don't like gotcha clauses. I'm like, no, let's like treat people like adults, but like be real about what you can and can't do. So like this is an example. This is one I found on the internet. You see, it looks like they've got some stuff down here, but like all they have is returns and shipping. No privacy policy. You are required by law to have a privacy policy. Okay. There are 7 states now that say, hey, our people have a right to know what you're doing with their information if they're on your website. You're probably selling to people in those states. Okay. So you need to have it, especially because now there's other laws, and we're probably eventually going to have a federal privacy law. So you don't need to really worry about it now. Just let you know, you have to have a privacy policy. It's a must. And then it's a really, really good idea to have terms that cover e-commerce, that cover IP ownership on your website, that cover, hey, if you make any user comments on this, like if you have interactive features on your website, right? I can use any of those. Like I can use that for whatever I want. If you put like a good review, I can use that as a testimonial, right? Those kind of terms allow you to do that kind of stuff. So I sell a website bundle. That's everything you need in the footer. It's my best-selling product because literally like everyone needs it. If you haven't taken care of this stuff, or if you have stuff on your site, but like it fell off the truck off the internet and you're not really sure what's on it, maybe take a look at it. And this might be worth it for you. So, okay. Let's talk about getting stuff in writing. Okay. Let's talk about getting our contracts. Yes, I am that friend that points out that, hello, Ariel was under 18 and therefore a minor and not eligible to contract in her own name. And so the whole premise here is a giant plot hole. Okay, even though I love Little Mermaid, but like also that's an unconscionable contract. So Ursula, like what are we doing here? Let's talk about our most important contracts are going to be the ones that protect our money. Okay, so if you're wondering, this seems overwhelming, I don't know where to start, what's most important after setting your LLC, this is the next most important thing, is your contract. Okay, especially as it protects your revenue stream. So that means if you're doing services, it's your service contract. If you are selling goods, it's going to be your purchase terms or what's on your website or what's in your receipt, like those, that's your mini contract with people. So let's talk about how we set those up with clients and customers, affiliates and vendors and collaborators. These are kind of like lateral folks that might be helping us do what we want to do in our business. And then team members, right? People who are working for us, independent contractors and employees. So, hey, for clients and customers, so your service agreement is going to be like your, sometimes also called an MSA, a master service agreement, your most important contract. So, and there's a few key important things that we need to have. I'll go on the next slide. So, but you want to make sure it's really clear and what's going to be, who's doing what, when, and how, like all those important, think about how like you wrote an informational essay. That's what a contract needs to be. You also want to make sure for products that has those purchase terms or terms and conditions in terms of service. So over communicate boundaries. If you have any doubt in your mind whether this is clear or not, say it and then say it another way. And then say, hey, you know, even do an onboarding email. Hey, I'm sending you my contract. I just want to point out a few important policies. If you think that this is where you're getting pushback from clients, if you're like, man, these people agree to this and then they get mad, well, let's do a better job of explaining it on the front end, okay? Because good communication means for low conflict, right? Unless we're dealing with unreasonable people, which they are out there. But guess what? The better the contract you have, the more you can narrow what those people can do and the harm they can do to you and your business. So don't hide the fine print, okay? Don't make gotcha stuff, tiny little things in your contract that are going to be a surprise. They're out of the ordinary. You know, if you think it's going to be an issue, over communicate that at the beginning to your clients and customers so that they have clear expectations. You're going to get happier clients. You're going to get lower chargebacks, lower drama. You're going to get people who have a better customer experience with you. And then make it easy on yourself. Use e-signatures, use ClickWrap, use software and project management software and e-signature, whatever, to do this. Don't make people like sign ink and then scan and print and do all that nonsense. We're not in Harry Potter, you know, book. We're not waiting for our Hogwarts letters anymore. We don't have to worry about like ink and quill signatures. So we're way past that. So, with affiliates and vendors and collaborators, so these are like the type of agreements that you might have, which are all really important, like service agreements, vendor, a triple N if you have manufacturers, licensing collab, or affiliate terms. You definitely should have affiliate terms if people are going to be selling on your behalf, making sure they're doing everything right as part of an affiliate program. Make sure that you are signing these on behalf of your business. Always do not enter any of these contracts personally, because Brittany Ratelle is not, you know, signing up to get her website redone. Ratelle Law or Creative Contracts, because I have two businesses, is doing that. Because if there's any drama, it needs to be a LLC problem, not a me problem, right? So make sure you're entering on behalf of your business. So check the first paragraph of the contract, and then at the end in the signature block, make sure you are signing your name, and then title, put in Brittany Ratelle, CEO, founder, or whatever, boss babe extraordinaire of your LLC. Make sure you are signing as a representative, as a manager of your entity, and not you yourself. Indemnification is a really big one. This is a legal doctrine that says that you are taking on the shift of an outside party suing because something went wrong and they're looking for someone to blame. And like, so if you indemnify the other person, that means if anyone sues either of you, you are going to pay for the whole lawsuit. You're going to pay to defend them if you did something wrong. So it can drastically shift the economic burdens if stuff goes wrong that you didn't expect to go wrong. So just be careful of it. Make sure that it's fair, like it's mutual. You both are covering each other, or get rid of it, or make sure it matches risk, right? You know, don't take it on if it's against a bigger player when they're the ones doing all the decisions and you're controlling very little. You shouldn't be taking on a disproportionate indemnification burden. So that's just something to watch out for in contracts, especially with bigger clients. Like if you have a corporate client or something, be careful about that. And then representation and warranties. These are promises you're making in a contract. So make sure you can do these. If you can't, if you're like, maybe, this is not a time to be maybe, this is a time to be like, yes, 100% I can do this. So, because it means if you don't do this, you're in breach of contract, okay? So here's some other agreements. These are all ones that I sell in my shop that are really common ones that business owners, especially modern business owners, might have, who are making content, who might be reaching out and doing content marketing or sharing stuff on social media, might be doing influencer programs or, you know, podcasts and doing events and taking pictures of people, doing giveaways, all of these other kind of marketing activities. Make sure you have this stuff. Again, I sell all of these in creative contracts. And then here are some need to know contract terms. So we already talked about indemnification. That was kind of a big one, but like you would imagine, compensation, right? Who's paying who? And then when is this happening and how? I can't tell you how many times people get mad of like, I'm waiting on this. And I'm like, well, do you know who, were you supposed to send an invoice? Because that's a really good thing to know, is that if you were supposed to invoice someone else, who you were supposed to invoice, and then how they were supposed to pay you. Do they know that? Is it supposed to be PayPal or check your invoice or a wire transfer? So check on those details. And this is a lightly, you know, passive aggressive, like roommate way, you know, like when you're a roommate in college and you would put in like, hey, just a reminder about the policy. This is a way that if this is happening, if you are overdue on an invoice, like if you need to get paid, you know, highlight these terms, screenshot them and attach them to an email and be like, just as a reminder, here are our payment terms that we agreed to, right? It's, you know, amazing how people will find that check. So especially when there is a late fee, which I highly recommend doing if you're a service provider, along with milestone payments, meaning do not have someone write a big check, one big check. There's a Murphy's Law of payment in being an entrepreneur, that the bigger the check that someone has to write, the more they're just not happy, even though this is the first you've ever heard of it. And you're like, I thought we were clicking, I heard nothing, everything was great. And then suddenly something about some weird psychology, someone starts writing a big check and they're like, maybe I don't love this. Maybe they screwed me over. Maybe like this isn't right. It's weird. And so don't invite that chaos into your life. Okay. Get some money up front to book you on their calendar, have some payment milestones if it's a big project. Because the person who has the money has the leverage. Okay. Okay. The person who has the money have the leverage. And so shift that burden a little bit. Scope of work deliverables is obviously applicable to, you know, client services, but make sure you're really specific. Who's doing what are you providing? What does a deliverable look like at the end and whatnot? Revisions and homework. Again, this is for people who are maybe service providers or just especially doing any kind of collaborative or creative work. Be really specific on how many rounds of revision, who's the contact person, what's the approval deadline, is there homework the client has to do, A, before you can do B, that all needs to be in your contract. Liquidated damages. This is really good to tie those into things like breaching confidentiality or breaching non-compete or breaching non-solicitation. It means there's money on the table they have to pay you if they do these things. Exclusivity. Make sure you've defined the relationship, right? A good old-fashioned DTR. Are you guys dating around, or are you married exclusively for this event or this relationship or this vendor contract? Really needs to be clear. There should be a term limit on exclusivity. It's never going to be forever. So make sure you understand, if you are exclusive, for how long are we talking about? And licensing versus buyout. This is, you know, IP related, but make sure you understand if this is part of the structure, is the use of materials or files or something else. How long are we talking about? And is it a flat fee or a payment structure or tiered based on sales or some other kind of a KPI? Make sure you understand that. Termination and kill clause. I was just reviewing a service agreement for a client of mine because they were hiring a new app developer. And these are really important hires because apps can suck so much money. If you've never hired people to do an app for you before. And so I've made sure that there was a kill clause in there. If my client is not being treated well, she doesn't like these people and she wants to walk, she needs to make sure she can take her app with her customer data, and she needs to know exactly what she needs to pay, especially because this contract is a revenue share. And so she's not paying them like a monthly retainer or anything. So really important to know, if worse comes to worse, if we have to get business divorced here and walk away, how much is on the table that I need to pay. And that's really important for you to know if you're hiring the vendor, and obviously really important for you to protect someone else in case they change their mind, right? Okay, but you've already done some work. You want to make sure that you're protected and your work has been protected. And you may be holding that date on the calendar because you turned other work away because you thought you had this locked in. So make sure you understand and you're protected. And then we already talked about indemnification. So, okay. And then the last one is get and loser. We're going to talk about team members. It's kind of last in our contracts. Be really careful about misclassification, y'all. It is a growing problem. You know, in Idaho, it's not as big a deal as like if you lived in California, but the risk is not zero. Misclassification is when you think someone's an independent contractor. They think they're an independent contractor, maybe. IRS or the state says that person is employee, okay? But if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it doesn't matter that you called them an IC, that person could be an employee. And then you are subject to some severe penalties at both the state and federal level because you should have been paying taxes on them. You should have been contributing to FICA and unemployment insurance and workers' comp and all kinds of other stuff that you didn't do, right? And being, you know, it's very different having independent contractors versus having an employee, which is why a lot of people have independent contractors. But this is the worst of both worlds, right? You had employees and you didn't know, so you weren't doing all the stuff you were supposed to do. Independent contractors are supposed to be that. They are supposed to be independent. They have the right to control the manner and means of work. And if you find that you are controlling the manner and means of their work, they're probably an employee and they probably should be made an employee, okay? It also means that because they are independent contractors, they need work for hire language, and they actually need to be covered by an independent contract. It's literally in their name, okay? So make sure you have one of these. Make sure that you have that work for hire or IP assignment language so that all the cool stuff that they're doing gets transferred to your business bucket. Without this in writing, technically it belongs to them. Really scary. And things can go south here. I've had a lot of clients with a lot of nightmare stories that we don't have time for now, but just believe me, this can get really, really messy when people do really important things for your business and then are like, well, I want that back, or I want to be paid more for that logo, or I don't think that that's what we discussed in terms of, or I'm going to turn your website off. And yeah, that stuff. And then W-2 employees, make sure you put them on payroll. Make sure you have some HR support if you've never done this before in terms of having employees. Because there are a lot of compliance things you need to do to get it right. Okay. And then, so this is why we set up independent contractors agreement, so we can do all of this. Subcontractors are different. They're just a type of independent contractor. So same thing. If you are contracting someone to do work for you, or if you're hiring someone and that's being contracted out, they're an independent contractor of that person. And so make sure that that person is covered by an IC agreement. And again, I sell these in my store, and they're a really important thing to have in your back pocket. And that way, anytime anyone comes in your business and they're doing something, whether it's a short-term project or it kind of turns into a longer relationship, sometimes as these ICs do, they're covered. And all of these things are good. That IP is being transferred. There's rules about confidentiality, about NDA. They can't share all your business secrets, right? It clarifies their roles. It helps set up the stage that like they're an independent contractor. See, so you know, this is anytime you hire any of these freelancers, you should be covered by that. Okay, let's talk about intellectual property. So it's what turns this into this, right? It's what turns basic stuff into stuff worth a lot more money, okay? And there's a huge part of our US economy, right? You want to build your business on ground that you can own. And so we use various tools to make that happen. Here is what you need to know about those. So copyright, trademark, patents. I'll just speak briefly. I don't do patents. You know, they're super helpful. And if you invent something like a new invention, that's what you want, is you want it patented. They're expensive, but they're worth it if like you're going to sell a lot of them or you're going to license your patent. So copyrights protect your creative stuff. Trademarks protect your branding. And then trade secrets kind of protect all the other proprietary stuff that you do in your business. The way you set up and protect a trade secret is actually through contracts. And so copyrights you have automatically, but you get some huge benefits if you actually register them. I highly recommend you register your copyrights to your stuff, especially if this is a big part of how you make your money and what you sell, is your actually creative work of any type. Trademarks, you get through use, but you perfect those rights through registration. And then that's when you get exclusive use nationwide. That's how you can set up licensing, franchising. To do any of those cool things, you got to have your trademark, especially if you're doing e-commerce. It's also really helpful to have your trademark. You can get on the brand registry for Amazon. There's lots of benefits, but they're an investment, right? I charge $3,000 for my trademark packages, and they go upwards depending on how many things you're protecting. And they take more than a year and a half now to secure. It's part of why they're so expensive. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of research to make sure that they're done correctly so they can actually protect you how they're supposed to. So that's just a joke about Bell Library and the first sale doctrine. But here's an example of stuff you can copyright versus things you can trademark, because a lot of people use this interchangeably, and they're different tools. They're complementary, and they can be used, especially for a lot of my info product clients. We use both of them to protect their stuff, but they do protect different things. So, and then here's stuff you can protect through copyright. For example, all of these things can be protected through copyright. Again, automatically, this belongs to you, but do you practically, if someone rips this stuff off, if you don't have a registration, they're probably going to tell you to pound sand, and there's not much you can do besides doing a DMCA takedown on the platform. So I highly recommend copyright registrations. I sell a DIY kit on how to do your own, because it's not hard, but like the government website is weird yet again. So I have a really easy product to help you. It's like a screen flow where I teach you exactly how to do it, and that you can rinse and repeat and bring down the cost of getting your own stuff registered, and make sure you can do that. Because you can do like your whole website, you can do a whole course, right? And that's a really great way to protect a big chunk of your stuff. These are things you can't protect through copyright. A lot of people think you can. Short words and phrases is the biggest one. You can protect them through trademark. If they're brand stuff, you can't protect them through copyright. And then here's are things you can protect through trademark, right? Book titles are weird. You have to have more than one book title. And the proprietary frameworks, you have to be careful and cagey about this. So. And then here are some other things, just big picture for trademark stuff. Trademarks can't be close to other people's, and they can't be descriptive. These are the two big no-nos, okay? So when I do searches, this is what I'm looking for with the lens of I'm someone who's filed more than 300 trademarks, so I know what I'm looking for, you know? It's not an exact science, because I'm trying to guess what another human being and their attorney is going to think on the other side. But you know, there are strategic ways that you can push and have a trademark, but you want to make sure that's available, especially if you're going to invest all this time and money in this branding and you hope that it hits. Certain names and famous stuff you cannot protect. Your last name, it's going to be descriptive unless you've been using it for a long time, 5 years specifically. So, and keep in mind that innocent infringement is still infringement. Not to unnecessarily scare you, but there's a lot of intellectual property theft that happens when people do business on the internet, especially in our modern digital creator economy. Just note that, like, putting in your caption, hey, I don't own the copyright to this music, doesn't do diddly squat, okay? Average copyright suit is $278,000 and takes over a year. And so willful infringement can include even up to criminal charges. So it's just something not to mess around with. If you didn't create it, assume you can't use it. That's the position you should start at. Assume you cannot use it if you did not create it or don't know where it came from, okay? Assume you do not have fair use if you're running a business. You're not in school, you're not writing a paper, it doesn't matter if you cite your source, you didn't make it, it's not yours, okay? Think of Inigo Montoya, okay? Unless you get in permission in writing, then that can change. So don't copy what you wouldn't want copied, kind of try to do the golden rule here, especially where I say the copyright law, like infringement, intellectual property law, is the floor of behavior, of legal boundary. And ideally, we want like an ethical fence above that of like, what's good ethics in my corner, in my industry? And then likely maybe even a personal boundary above that of like, I don't want to be the type of person who does this, who copies A, who rips off other people like this. So make sure you're being intentional with that, and ideally think about this stuff before you're in a crunch position and pressed in a way, you know, monetarily, you know, emotionally, whatever, where you have to compromise your boundaries and your standards. Okay. Remember, the legal line is the absolute floor for behavior. It doesn't have to be the limit. You can always choose how you want to show up in the world, right? Here are some clean processes for you and your team. So this is a good one to screenshot if you want to, especially if you have other people helping you. Make sure you know the source of your content. If you created it, then you should have a contract covering that, okay? If someone else created it, you should have permission to use it, and you should have permission for commercial use, the right type of license, because you are a business, which means you need commercial use. If you're using someone's name, image, or likeness, it's called their nil nowadays, you need permission to do that. If you can identify someone in any media, okay, that means by audio, video, or photos, you need to have their permission. So have a model release on hand. You know, if you're out in public and there's not an expectation, it's like a giant group shot, then you're probably covered. But anything else, if you're having an event and people come in and they're interacting with your product and you can see them happy and smiling and doing stuff, throw your model release into your event form, okay? Throw a sign up when people walk in the door. I sell all this stuff on my website because you want to make sure you can have permission to use and show their face. If you don't have any of the above, find another asset to use, okay? Just be careful about use. Assume that's copyright cake. Means that when you create something, you have all the rights. So, and assume that like IP boundaries are what turn like, you know, a personal product into like an actual brand. And so they can be used strategically to try to, and can monumentally increase your value. So this is an example of a couple of my clients that I've been able to help that with, right? And we've been able to protect some of their stuff. So Freshly Picked is not a client of mine, but they're a good friend that I've had a chance to watch from the beginning. But this is example of where, as you build your brand and company, how you can use that strategically for other things. We have the battle of the Robins, right? Personal development coaches. So,
And really quick, so we have like another minute. We got to wrap up just in case
okay.
people have questions. So I'll give you another minute.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting to my troubleshooting, but does anyone have any important, basically this one is easy. It's just like, hey, you know that some risks are more than others, and these are the ones that matter. So let's see, Leah, did you have a question? Yeah. Let's see, question for later to go further. Let's see, if I attend an event and take photos and put in my Facebook business, do I have to get release? So yes. If there can be personally identifiable, unless you have their permission, you cannot use it for commercial purposes because it could be seen as an implied endorsement, and people have basically the rights to their face. So even if they're your pictures, and so if they're going to be used for something and you want them for use for business, you have to get a release. And so that either needs to come from the event provider who gets it from the person, or you have to get it from the person themselves. So sometimes having like a waiver software on your phone, right, or iPad where people can sign is really helpful here to make it so you can do it kind of at the time, right? Especially if you're recording something. Okay, question for later. Do you do an analysis of our doc socials, just sort of a checkup? Yeah, I do legal audits for sure. So reach out to me if you want. My socials are here, or my website, brittanyratelle.com. So, but I do, and I help people kind of review what they have of their stuff. And so if you want to know, like, how's your website? How are your documents? What contracts do they are? Is everything up to snuff? I'll kind of do a big 360 kind of exposure audit on your business and let you know where the problems are. And then you can decide if you want to book me to have stuff fix it, or if there are offers from my website that can work, if you want to get some of my contract templates or whatnot. But that is definitely an option. So that's just some of my business story of like risk. So here is where you can find all my contract templates at creativecontracts.co. And I do have a code for you guys. So if you use MIB15, you get 15% off anything you get there, just as a thank you for having me. So sorry we had to rush a little bit at the end. But this is just kind of stuff of like mindset, whatever. Understanding that risk is part of the game, because I don't want to leave you in a place of fear of like, uh-oh, Brittany only just told us all this stuff and now I'm scared to death. That's not a helpful place to be. Like I said, there's a healthy balance, right? We don't need to live in a panic room of like everyone's out to get us, because that's not realistic. Like, I believe in the goodness of people, but also let's not be base jumping without a parachute. Okay, like new level, new devil. Okay, that discount was MIB 15. Okay, mamas in business 15. Okay, to get 15% off. So, okay. Anyone else have any other questions? I know we're over time, but
And if they want to get more details on the troubleshooting part, can they just reach out to you directly for
Yeah,
that?
just reach out to me. So yeah, reach out to me on Instagram is usually the best way to get a hold of me, or I'll put my email right here. But yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah. Remember,
Okay.
you're not going to be overwhelmed by this. You simply know more than you did before. Okay, we said it,
That's
so now we're going to make it so.
That's right. Well, thank you, Brittany. Really appreciate it. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to her directly. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Obviously, this one is just wild right now. So I'm
Okay,
gonna
thanks.
have to close this out. But yes, yeah, Leah sent her a message on Instagram. Thanks, Jocelyn. Yeah. Any urgent questions like you have to know right now?
I am a movie nerd for sure. Let's see. I'm just scanning through the questions. Let's see. I think we got the thing about the BOR email. Okay, you're gonna send me a question by Instagram. Okay, I think we went through all the ones that at least went in the chat. So, and I hope
Okay.
those who watch the replay, I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you again, Nikki, so much for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. And hopefully, please reach out and connect on Instagram or any of the other places. But that's where I like to hang out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I will connect with you, Brittany, soon on doing some kind of like workshop possibly.
Yeah.
So you all can stay tuned for that. All right,
Hey,
other than that, have a great evening and talk to you later.
sounds good. Thank you.